Understand that if we've got a lump sum of money, it's not just that we're making withdrawals and taking and removing dollars out of it. It's that the market can disappear some of our dollars in those bad years.
Peter, so good to see you. Welcome back, everyone. We have made it to number 1 in our Countdown to Retirement series. So let's get into it. The number 1 most important factor determining your retirement success: income.
Yeah.
You think I gave it away? I haven't. I know you know that, Peter. So again, this is our Countdown to Retirement series. You have a great resource on your website, Richon Planning. But let's get into the nuts and bolts now. According to a study by the Alliance for Lifetime Income, 80% of retirees with protected lifetime income say they are confident they won't outlive their money. That is compared to just 33% of those without it. So again, I notice the answer here is income. Why isn't the answer how big your nest egg is?
Well, this generation retiring today, the baby boomer generation, we are in the midst of their great retirement wave, has had the 401k available to them for the majority or the entirety of their working careers. And as a result, has built up more personal investable net worth and assets than any other generation before them. And yet, there is still more doubt and worry and concern and uncertainty about, will I have enough to retire, than any generation previously, because generations previous had pensions rather than the 401k as the mainstay for retirement planning. They knew that if they worked for a company and retired, they would continue to get paid a paycheck that they could count and rely on for the remainder of their lifetime. Whereas today, the question of, will my money last, is very prevalent. Even though we have built up more, we have less confidence that that money is enough, that that money is sufficient, that will cover our lifetime needs, which include all of the things that we want to do. This is a more active generation. It includes bucket list items and trips and travel. It includes spending. It includes gifting. It includes the potential costs of healthcare down the road, and inflation and taxation. And so we've got to factor all of these things in. And at the end of the day, we just have a lot of worry about, will my money last? And when we talk about, will my money last, will I have enough? It's honestly not about the lump sum. It is, will I be able to continue spending and affording my lifestyle? Well, that is a question that is answered by income, not lump sum. The amount that you have in a lump sum does not necessarily translate into lasting financial retirement confidence. The amount that you can spend this month and shows back up next month, that is what equates to that lasting confidence that we are looking for.
You know, it's funny though, Peter, because essentially we've always had an income plan. What's different in retirement?
Indeed, we have. We set our alarm and we showed up to work. We put in our time, our labor, our sweat equity, our skill, our intelligence, and we traded, most importantly, our time for money. That was the income plan. But remember, we're talking about retiring. We're hoping to stop making that trade. And most people that I talk to, most of the clients of Richon Planning, have done well during their working career. They've made good trade of time for money, and they've been able to build up a pretty substantial amount. They've been able to cover their bills, their taxes, their spending, and they've even been able to invest along the way. They haven't had to pinch every penny or stretch every dollar necessarily, but they've done good in living within their means and the amount they could earn when trading their time for money. But the hope is to not have to make that trade and to be able to live and enjoy a significant chunk of our lives based on the hard work that we put in during our working career. Well, now the money that we've saved represents us and our hard work. It represents our paycheck producing ability. And most people have never done this before. We've been showing up to work for 30 or 40 years every day. We've set our alarms, we've gone in, but we've never really counted on that investment portfolio to substitute for us, to generate that income. And so there's a question of, well, how do I even make withdrawals here? And when you start making them, like, how do I know this is going to last? And how do I factor in taxes? And what if there's a big market correction? And what accounts should I tap first, second, third, last? Like, all of these questions come up, and people have to figure things out brand new and fresh, especially those first few several years of retirement. It's a completely different set of rules. I've heard the analogy that, well, working is the first half of the game and retirement is the second half of the game. And you could go into halftime with the lead. It doesn't mean that you're going to win the game. And I agree with that fundamentally, but it's not even like you're playing the same game in the second half. You come out and you play a completely different game by a different set of rules. And it really does make it kind of hard to figure out if you've never done it before.
Mm-hmm. Nearly 70% of pre-retirees say their biggest concern is generating enough reliable income to last a lifetime. So can you rely solely on your investments to support you through retirement as an investment plan and an income plan?
No, you really can't. The investment plan is an investment plan. And again, you have been the income plan. Having you working and serving as that income plan is what allowed for the success of the investment plan. You were supporting the investments during that period of time. In order for the investment plan to continue successfully, we've got to replace the income plan. And it may not mean that all of the money continues to be invested in the same way that it has previously. We may need to make some alterations and pivot slightly with some of those dollars to replace the income plan. I've heard that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, but I think it's kind of equally insane. I mean, my brother calls that persistence, by the way, but I think it's equally as insane to do something completely different and expect the same results. If I leave my house to go to work and every day I make a right-hand turn and then suddenly I decide I'm going to make a left, I should not expect to hit the same stoplights and the same traffic pattern. Or if I go to a pool and hold my head above water, I expect to be able to breathe, no problem. But if I do the opposite behavior, I should not expect the same result, right? And so the direction of money is doing something completely different. In fact, it's doing the opposite. And so during our working career, when we were the income plan, we are making deposits and contributions. And so the market and the investment plan benefits from those contributions and dollar cost averaging. But we are doing the complete opposite behavior in retirement. We are making withdrawals and taking distributions. And now reverse dollar cost averaging or dollar cost ravaging can work against us and against the success of the investment plan. And the direction of your money matters as much, if not more, than the direction of the market. And most people have never really sat down and looked at that. How did those contributions work to my advantage during my working career? Now reverse that. How are distributions and withdrawals going to work against my investment success during my retirement career? And when you see how that would have played out over the course of your lifetime, what that would mean for your lump sum today if you were making distributions instead of contributions, like for most people, that's pretty eye-opening to the fact that, hey, yes, I actually do really need to address having a separate income plan specific and designated to one purpose, and that is generating income for the lasting ongoing success of my investment plan to be able to be maintained throughout retirement.
Mm-hmm. And you were just touching on it, Peter, but explain again how your income is much more susceptible to market volatility. I'm assuming you were talking about sequence risk.
Yeah, well, and that is if you leave the investment plan in place and plan to take income from that, right?
Right.
Because we've seen big market downturns. It's not every year, but it happens. 70 to 75% of the years, the market goes up. Well, what about those other 25 to 30% of the years? 2000, 2001, 2002, the Great Recession, 2007, 2008, 2018, COVID, 2022. These were all down years in the market. And, they didn't happen predictably every third or fifth year, but they did happen at a frequency that we need to concern ourselves with and understand that if we've got a lump sum of money, it's not just that we're making withdrawals and taking and removing dollars out of it. It's that the market can disappear some of our dollars in those bad years. And so if we've got a lump sum of money, let's just call it $1 million, and we're taking out $50,000 a year, well, what happens when the million turns into 750,000, not because we spent the money, but because the market went down 25%. And then our bill collectors don't call us and say, hey, we know the market's down, we're going to reduce your bills by 25% this year. That doesn't happen. We still have to take out that same $50,000. So now we've removed those dollars, we've locked in those losses, and we've taken away the ability for full recovery of those dollars. They're not going to participate when the market eventually does come back. And so that is sequence of returns risk. That is how it is different in retirement that we really need to work and think through. And especially in the years leading up to retirement, like the 5 to 10 years prior to, and then the first 5 to 10 years of retirement, we really need to make sure that we are not liquidating shares, locking in losses, and removing dollars in the midst of a market downturn, which means we either need to know and be able to predict the future, right? Oh, I'll just retire when the market's going to be up for the next 10 to 15 years, right? Nobody can do that. Not reliably. Nobody can predict that. So what we need to do is remove some dollars from market risk to make them income producing dollars. And I've actually got some really cool charts of the S&P returns versus just the aggregate bond index returns, and what removing volatility, even though they're lower returns, it is a more sustainable projection and trajectory using the aggregate bond index than the S&P over a course of time making withdrawals. So it's a pretty cool chart. I'll find that. If anybody's interested, I'm happy to send that to you. Just shoot me an email.
Okay. And then last question for you, Peter. How often should we be revisiting our income plan?
Very often. I think at least a yearly basis, right? Things in our lives change rapidly, and sometimes without us even really realizing it till we sit down and evaluate. And then the world around us changes like every day. And we need to be constantly monitoring both the income and the investment plan, right? You had a pulse on your income plan during your working career. You were there every day. You were doing it, right? We need to have a pulse on the income plan during retirement as well, and double check on it. We're not there every day the same way we were when we were working, but we need to double check and review that income plan pretty frequently in retirement. I would say at least once a year is probably appropriate, and more often if needed. If you have things set up in a way that can be volatile or can fluctuate based on either interest rates or market movements, then you may need to revisit it more often. If instead you've got Social Security and pensions, and within your household that covers 100% of everything that you need to live off of, well, maybe we don't need to check on that quite as often, because that's far more predictable and dependable. But if there's anything within the income plan that moves or changes or can vary, we need to update and double check that at least once a year.
All right. So, Peter, again, please share with us how people can download their own copy of the Countdown to Retirement.
Yeah, go online to our website, richonplanning.com, and that looks like richonplanning.com. Go to the resources tab, and then you click on the sub downloads, and that will take you to the page where you can download on the left-hand side the Countdown to Retirement. It is 10 different reports within a consolidated guide. And if you move through all 10 of these and have addressed everything in there, you should have a very strong feeling of confidence about your plan. However, if there's anything in there that you have not addressed, it probably indicates that there's more to the picture that is missing than has been addressed, like the tip of the iceberg. And that's why we put together the optimized retirement plan for clients. Find that most of our clients have done a good job in their income plan, during their working career, but have not addressed it for retirement. Most of them have done well in budgeting and investing, but don't understand what taxes are going to mean for them in retirement, maybe have not addressed a strong plan for the potential of healthcare costs or legacy goals. And so we bring all of those together. That's what the Optimized Retirement Plan is all about. And we put that together, no cost, no obligation. It's a courtesy service for listeners to the program. So go download that Countdown to Retirement guide. And on the website, there's a button right at the top for schedule. You can schedule a call or a visit, either in person or virtually. Happy to talk to you and make sure that you've covered everything that is essential for lasting confidence in retirement, or we'll put together that optimized retirement plan for you.
Great. And can you share with us your phone and email too, please?
Yeah, 919-300-5886, 919-300-5886, and Peter at RichonPlanning.com. And again, that looks like Rich on Planning. So Peter at RichonPlanning.com or 919-300-5886.
Great. Peter, thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Hey folks, Peter Richon here with Richon Planning. So glad that you are enjoying the podcast, Planning Matters Radio. You know, one of the tools that we've put out there that people really seem to appreciate and really are finding of value is at 919retired.com. It is your retirement tax bill calculator. If you've got any kind of retirement account, your tax deferred 401k or IRA, this is the website, this is the resource where you can go, you can plug in your own numbers, your information, you can slide the tool calculator up and down for your tax rate or your amount of savings and see what your tax bill is likely to be if you default and defer to the IRS's plan versus what you could potentially bring that tax bill down to. A lot of times it is a very significant savings. So if you have not yet, go to the website 919retired.com, run your numbers on the retirement tax bill calculator.
This has been Planning Matters Radio.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.